Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Fake Doctorate Files. This could be episode 4, it could be episode 5 depending on how you look at it. On Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, I think this will be episode 3. Nonetheless, today's episode is one that comes after quite a couple of weeks. We are going to do today's episode slightly differently. It'll be a solo presentation with the key questions presented to you down over here in text overlay. So brace yourself and let's go into this week's incredible revelation that carries with it significant consequences for the legal fraternity back in Zimbabwe. So today we're talking about somebody called Dumisani Madzivanyati. Basically, Dumisani Madzivanyati is a lecturer at the National University of Science and Technology. And basically, he is the subject of today's episode of the Fake Doctorate Files.
When do we first hear about this guy?
So we first hear about Dumisani Madzivanyati around 2020-2021, at least at a national level. And this is when he's involved in a battle with a farm in Bulawayo. The farm is owned by the son of a celebrated liberation war hero. His name is Sipho Malunga, and he is a human rights lawyer. And Madzivanyati basically invades that farm. He invades that farm. He then deliberately sabotages the crops on that farm, causing over 330,000 worth of damage in terms of crops and produce. And that is when Madzivanyati basically becomes national headlines, it becomes a national story. But in Bulawayo and in the circles in Bulawayo, Madzivanyati has been quite a known figure, not because he's just a lecturer at the National University of Science and Technology, but because there are a couple of incidences, some of them there's allegations that a firearm is let off at a club in Bulawayo. His name gets mentioned. He owns a business in town, so you find quite a number of reports in local community papers referring to him either as a socialite, as a businessman, also as an academic. So within the local circles in Matabeleland, specifically in Bulawayo, Madzivanyati is a name that is known from 2016, 2017. There's a couple of scandals here and there, but he really hits the national headlines when he seizes a farm owned by Malunga and two other people.
Why are we talking about him today?
Well, this is the Fake Doctorate Files. So anytime you see us speaking about anybody, it means we've dug into the academic record and we've found significant problems. And in the case of Dumisani Madzivanyati, he is listed on the National University of Science and Technology. You can see the link on their website here. It's a screenshot of it. And he's listed there as pretty much a senior lecturer. He appears on their prospectus as well. So he is a key figure, in his own summary that is on the National University of Science and Technology. It describes him as having been a head of department in one capacity or another. But why we're talking about him is because his academic record doesn't tie up. As with everybody in the Fake Doctorate Files, Dumisani Madzivanyati has a pretend degree, a maybe degree from a university that we've featured quite heavily in the last couple of weeks, and we will explain why and how that is the case.
Did you investigate other degrees?
So we looked at Madzivanyati's record quite entirely. On the National University of Science and Technology, they list him as having a PhD in Business Administration, an MSc in Accounting and Finance, a Bachelor of Honors in Accounting and Finance, and he's a certified public accountant. We looked at the record quite entirely, beginning with his undergraduate and master studies. On the prospectus of the National University of Science and Technology, NUST, he is listed as having attended De Montfort University, popularly known as DMU in the UK. And De Montfort is quite a prestigious university in England. It has quite a great record. I actually tried to attend there myself, and I fell at the last hurdle. But it's quite a celebrated university. It has quite a respected doctoral program there as well. And initially we get in touch with DMU, and their press officer says to us, hey, look, we're not quite sure if we have any association with the guy. And granted, DMU is initially quite concerned about the allegations that we're putting across, but they say, hey, look, we're gonna go deep into this. So the moment they say we're not so sure there's any association between him and this guy, obviously the hairs on the back of our neck, they immediately spike up. But DMU do come back to us some two and a half weeks later and say, hey, we get that you're investigating fake degrees, but the actual bachelor's degree and the master's degree, he's got them with us. He has them with us, and that pretty much at least ticks the box. But then we go into the doctoral degree, and that's the one from Aldersgate University. So we've covered Walter Mzembe, we've covered several people from Aldersgate, the Chris Mshowe, the late, Nanette Silikuni, the Zak lady, and Dumisani Madzivanyati essentially has the same degree from Aldersgate. So once we see Aldersgate and we see that on the prospectus, then we know that there's a problem. But we decide that we probably need to go a little bit deeper this time with this, and we think when you're an academic lecturer and you are a head of department at some point and you're considered a senior lecturer in the institution, they have to be people that at least know about you. You have to, in some sectors, be contributing in leading journals. So we look up Dumisani Madzivanyati on Google Scholar, and it draws a blank. You can see there, it draws a flat out blank. We look at variations of his name. It draws a blank. So essentially, we're in the situation where if he's done a PhD, nobody has discovered it, or the quality of that output has been so bad that in academic circles nobody's referencing it. We look at ResearchGate to try and see, has he contributed papers or anything, because on the website of NUST it says he's contributed significantly to lots of leading journals and publications, and we looked that up and we can't find anything. The only thing that we can find, and I think I've still got it open somewhere here, the only thing we can find is on the International Journal corner, and that is the International Journal of Business Management, volume 6 of May 2018. And there is an article, The Effects of Economic Policies in the Manufacturing Sectors in Post-Independent Zimbabwe. But it's withdrawn and it's pulled down, and we don't know if it's a matter of access with us or what's happening, but that's about the only academic paper that we have. And then drawing from my own experience when I was studying for a PhD before I withdrew last year, all of my lecturers and even my other colleagues who were PhD candidates, like me, you look at their output, they were contributing to journals. You search them up, you can find it. I think Professor Dan Jackson was my lecturer. He must have 30 or 40 different publications that he appears in, because academics are in that business of it's a game of knowledge. It's the currency. They write papers, they're in constant discussion with other colleagues. We don't see this for Dumisani Madzivanyati. So the next thing that we do is we then go to his colleagues and say, hey, there's a lecturer called Dumisani Madzivanyati from your university. What's the story with him? And the first thing that the people say are, so two things. His papers are dodgy, and there's something that just doesn't add up with this guy. So we go to the second person and say, hey, head of Dumisani Madzivanyati. It's like, I'm in a different department. I'm not in the business accounting and finance department, but I've interacted with him, and I've always wondered, something's off with this guy. Something doesn't make sense. He doesn't make structured academic arguments. He doesn't speak like somebody who has a PhD. So we think we'll go to a third person who is a former student, and we go to the former student and say, hey, can you tell us about Dumisani Madzivanyati? And he says, the entire time that he taught me, I often wondered, what the hell is happening here? Something's not right with this guy. But somehow he has been a leading academic at the National University of Science and Technology. Now, of course, all of this it's not proof of anything. It's just the little things that we look into to try and add up the story, so we don't show up and say, oh yeah, he's just got one from Aldersgate. I think we said in the last episode that if you look up people who graduated from Aldersgate from Zimbabwe, you'll get the shock of your life. And there's an entire episode about that when we discussed about Walter Mzembe. Thembi, and we're going to be doing a couple of shorts and explainers so people understand the problems with Aldersgate. But in Dumisani Madziwanyati's case, would say the challenge is this guy has gone to Aldersgate College. Aldersgate College is not accredited to give out anything higher than a master's degree, at least according to the Philippines government, according to their Council for Higher Education, and according to the accreditation bodies we find in the Philippines. And on Aldersgate College, their own website also says they only offer those programs, and that on its own is a problem. And these guys got these degrees around about the same time. They didn't even graduate in Philippines. They were graduating in December, which is out of sync and so forth, And I'll really get into this a little bit later in terms of the problems with Aldersgate. But just by that alone, we know that this senior lecturer at the National University of Technology was heading an entire department and likely also supervising PhD students, and who appears on NUST's register in their prospectus as a leading tutor. He has, again, a bogus maybe degree. And that pretty much is the head and the tail of the story.
What are the ramifications?
So yes, there is a lecturer, not just a lecturer. We're talking a senior lecturer who's teaching at the National University of Science and Technology. He's a senior lecturer who is being presented as a doctor. He's not. And naturally, senior lecturers who have PhDs not only supervise other doctoral students, but they supervise master students, they supervise bachelor students. Now, the legal ramifications of this, I think we could split them into two. The first one being obviously that anybody who took a course where this guy, Dumisani Madziwanyati, was the lecturer or the tutor in charge, that course is tainted. There is a real danger that that person is essentially a byproduct of fraud, because ultimately we speak about the fruit of the poisonous tree, that the poisonous tree cannot give out anything except poisonous fruit. So anybody who's passed through his hands ultimately is not as qualified as we would like them to be. And the other potential ramification is anybody who went to NUST and was taught by this guy could join, I suppose, in some form of a class action suit. The reason I say this is that when you go to a university, there is an agreement of good faith there that the teachers that the university supplies you with are qualified to teach that prospectus and qualified to train you. So when in instances like this, it's akin to you going to a hospital and you are under the impression that the doctor you see in Pararenyatwa has been provided by the Ministry of Health and that doctor is trained and licensed. If they turn out not to be trained, you could feel that there is negligence on the part of the hospital and you could join a class action suit. And there's also that hit which the university will take. NUST is one of the few universities that has quite a good reputation in Zimbabwe. The UZ used to be quite prestigious until Grace went and she did her doodle there and ended up with some degree that nobody respects. That is such a stain and a taint. And it's a stain and a taint to the point that I know several leading academics who wanted to enroll at the UZ who now say, we will not do a degree at the UZ because that stain is bad. But NUST has always been able to maintain this perception that there's order at NUST, there's class, there's integrity. MSU's had its issues, especially with its doctor in business leadership. It's something that we're exploring in a further episode to show how problematic that course is and how it should probably be scrapped, because it's a course that only one person has graduated since its inception. But that's a story for another day. A lot of the other universities, Chinoi, its reputation is only starting to get better now. And so NUST was seen as quite prestigious. Now, revelations that a NUST lecturer did not have qualifications to teach the courses he's teaching, there will be a blow to the rating of that degree. And I mean, we sent questions to the press office with the South African Qualification Authority, SAQA, asking them if revelations of that nature would would affect how they rate future degrees. We're still to hear from SAQA, but in a follow-up episode when we discuss about NUST, we'll definitely probably have their response. We've sent as well questions to the University of KwaZulu-Natal, which is something that everybody's been jumping up and down in our comments that you need to do the University of KwaZulu-Natal. We're speaking to the University of to UKZN about their doctoral programs and about everything that's happened there. So that story will probably be the biggest bombshell that you've ever seen on Dug Up. But outside of that, we were talking about the ramifications. So we also are putting it to other universities to say, how will you view graduates from NUST when you know that some of their graduates may have passed through the hands of what is essentially a dirty man. But we then also decided to go deeper and look for a legal response. And I'll just read it out here. And this, because we sent questions to a leading lawyer and advocate in Zimbabwe, one of your personal favorites. I know Zimbabweans love him. So we asked him and said, advocate, could you give us a comment? And in a written statement, this is what he said. He said there should be no implications on the students because university grades go through various bodies before they are confirmed. Similarly, even the exams go through a panel to assess whether they are at the right standard. If the lecturer does have some genuine university qualification, then it's even better because the PhD is not a prerequisite to teach, but is largely seen as the norm. Yes, the students might potentially have a claim for misrepresentation against the university, but if the lecturer has some form of a university qualification, then their damages would not be extremely high because they did get an education. Let me use an example to illustrate. You know those fake doctors or nurses in hospital cases. The patients who are treated can sue, but if they actually got better, then they can't get very high damages, while someone that did not get better or died is, or their estate is entitled to high damages. I hope this helps. And essentially what the lawyer is saying is there are various layers at universities, their bodies to assess qualifications and so forth. So this is not just a case of I walked into a private practice and I was given a certificate. So there should be no ramifications for the students. And he also says that students can sue the university successfully for misrepresentation, but the damages would not be as high because, well, the person does have some form of university qualification and it's not a prerequisite for him to have had the PhD. The only issue is that of misrepresentation. But as I said earlier, and what we were trying to find out about what this means for students who went to NUST, is the general perception. We know that the perception about the University of Zimbabwe took a huge hit because of Grace Mugabe's supposed PhD. It didn't necessarily result in an instance where user degrees are frowned upon, but I do know of instances where international bodies have not really taken degrees from the UZ with as much gravity as they naturally or previously would. They look at it now as if it's some form of a degree from some, behind the desk university in Nigeria. But that's the legal context. Now, we understand that anyone who went to NUST is going to look at this and think, oh, hold on, what the hell's happening here? And that's a fair thing to make. When I went to Nottingham Trent University, had I found out that, for instance, my lead tutor, the person who taught me documentary, her name is Lynn Champion. She's got over 30 years of experience at the BBC. She's a Canadian-British woman. If I found out that Lynn's CV, which is part of the prospectus at NTU at Trent, and which is one of the reasons I chose Trent over any other university, if I found out that CV was untrue, I would be not just aggrieved, but I would pretty much be quite upset. And this is the scenario that we have in this case, where there is a case of misrepresentation, but above all, there is quite a serious issue of perception, because from a pure perspective of perception, this is very damaging for NUST. And I'll even take it further, because we first sent questions to NUST quite a while ago. We approached their spokesperson, Tabani. Let me just check his Tabani NUST, yes. Yeah, so we approached NUST spokesperson. His name is Tabani. He read our inquiries. He didn't respond to them. Instead, what Tabani did was go to a colleague within the journalism fraternity and say, Maynard sent me some questions regarding this, but never actually offered a response. So we know NUST is aware. We sent emails through and through to NUST as well to put forward what we had found, what we're investigating. This is the case that we know. You guys are employing this person. What does this mean? What are the consequences? Did you know? NUST didn't respond, which is their right. They don't owe us a response. But the important factor with regards to this is that we now know that NUST is or was aware. So therefore, there can be no excuse of we didn't know. At least they've now known for 3 weeks and they've not done anything to act. At the time of recording, our understanding is that Dumisani Madzivanyati is still a lecturer at NUST. And it brings in quite a lot of issues about the integrity of the institution itself. Take the fake drug test aside, because at the start, as I said, right, if I pull up his name on Google here, there is quite a lot of stories there. Stories that would at least, or should at least raise some eyebrows. At one point, this guy was facing a potential jail term because he was ignoring a court order and so forth. The sheriff was trying to evict him. Now, naturally, of course, these things may have been happening outside of the university campus, but a lot of employment charters, a lot of contracts between employers and employees and so forth, have a certain level of demand in terms of how you carry yourself. When I worked for Reach PLC, you know them as the Daily Mirror, the Daily Star, the Daily Express. They wouldn't get involved in personal issues, but in instances where, for instance, you were convicted of a crime, that would be grounds for dismissal, or if you violated a court order, or if you behaved in a manner that was seen as illegal or unconstitutional, or if you did things that brought the reputation of the business into some form of disrepute. And in this instance, Dumisani Madzivanyati, he's been all of that. He's quite notorious. Put his name in Google, and you'll get the shock of your life that this guy is a senior lecturer, and you've got that. So NUST have known this; they do know this, and as far as we know, he's still employed. So it's hard to then escape allegations that there could be some form of collusion. There is an aspect to him that I didn't bring up earlier that you would find when you are looking at his record, right? Which is he is covered in every single report as a ZANU-PF supporter, a ZANU-PF supporter. He is a known sympathizer of the ruling party. Whether or not that means he has some form of protection is difficult to know. In our discussion, and I'll just pull that up on screen. Apologies for that. So in our discussions with some people who've had run-ins with him, they did say that while they were dealing with him, both via the courts and stuff and the challenges that they've had with him, that they were reports and there was an understanding that this guy could be part of the Central Intelligence Organization. He seemed to enjoy quite significant protection, whether or not because he's a ZANU-PF sympathizer, or whether or not because he identifies as a ruling party supporter, or there's another reason that is then not mentioned, is hard to prove. But the people that dealt with him all the way from messengers of court and the litigants and lawyers, they were all under the impression that there's something that's just not right, with this guy. So we followed that up. We tried to check if he is employed by the government in one way or the other via the Public Service Commission. We hit a brick wall there in terms of getting something meaningful. But when we did look at least the records of non-operators and agents by tapping up our sources within the CIO, we were able to establish quite flatly that he's not a member of the Central Intelligence Organization, or at least on paper he isn't. We were told that he could be, part of satellite programs. So what happens in the CIO sometimes is They have your full-on agents, operatives, but there are some people who attend the training school who are then attached in these little satellite programs. They can be intelligence programs where it's a couple of people from defense counterintelligence, military intelligence, from police crime intelligence, and from the CIO itself. They can be just for intelligence gathering. They can be for something else entirely. That he could be in some of those programs, and if he was, we wouldn't be able to confirm that the level of clearance you need to get those kind of employment records is at an operational level. So you're talking about the people that can sign off on someone being taken out. Those are the ones that would know about, secret agents. But we bring this up understanding that this is not really firmed up, but it helps build the context around this guy, around Dumisani Madzivanyati. We know that his PhD is fake because it's from it's from Aldersgate. So that's pretty much the summary. I think that's ended up going much longer than I thought, but I hope that's been like a well-rounded response.
Have you tried to reach out to him?
So we tried to reach out to Dumisani. We sent him questions. The questions were read, 1 tick, 2 ticks on WhatsApp. Then he went into a typing mode. We thought, great, we're going to get a response. He went into typing mode. He then didn't respond at all. We did our best to try and call him. The moment you introduce yourselves as Dagap, we're investigating you, he hangs up the phone, and eventually that became a dead end.
So probably sum up the issues with Aldersgate.
Okay, so these are the issues with Aldersgate, right? To begin with, right, Aldersgate, when you go to their website, Aldersgate is a college in the Philippines. Aldersgate on their website only offer bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. To confirm that, you can go on the government of the Philippines. And so there's something called the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities Commission on Accreditation, right? And when you go on that commission, they have a list of the amount of universities that are accredited in the Philippines to give out degrees, as well as the actual programs. And the list that we have in front of us has 236 member institutions and 2,110 different programs that are accredited. Aldersgate College appears in Region 2. Name of institution, Aldersgate College, Inc. Institutional head, Reverend Micah Ryan B. Ramel, the president. Its address is in Nueva Vizcaya in Philippines. Aldersgate is accredited to dish out the program of civil engineering, information communication technology, electrical engineering, and senior high school. So there is absolutely nothing there on the Philippine on the website of the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities Commission on Accreditation. And according to the Philippines government themselves, Aldersgate can only give a master's degree or bachelor's degree. I'll pull up the other thing that we find here, which is there's something called the Federation of Accrediting Agencies of Philippines, established in 1977. And again, there is nothing to the effect that Aldersgate, gives out these PhDs. So in summary, that's the long and short of it, where Aldersgate isn't accredited to give out PhDs, right? We've had submissions from people who say, but it could be a chance that you can get your degree via Aldersgate if they're in partnership with another university that gives out PhDs. And the issue with that is, if Aldersgate was in partnership with another university, your degree would carry the awarding university. So take for instance, I have dreams of opening up a journalism school in Zimbabwe at some point. That's why I was doing a PhD. I want to start a journalism college in Zimbabwe. When I do, my goal has always been to be in partnership with the Center for Broadcasting and Journalism, the CBJ, which is under Nottingham Trent University, and it's one of the most prestigious journalism training schools in the whole of the UK. In that partnership, for instance, if you graduated from the Maynard Manuel School, your qualifications, if I'm doing this in partnership or via the NTU, they'll be from the NTU. And then there is other little issues that add up, that get you to the point where you start wondering that, or not even wondering, you start realizing that there's something wrong with this. So far, all of the people that we've had from Aldersgate, their degrees, when you look at their PhD thesis, when you feed it in to turn it in 90% of the cases, it's coming out as a first submission. When you go through the document itself, it's not even up to the standard of a thesis for a bachelor's degree. There are no references, there is no bibliography. In Mzembe's case, for instance, the entire synopsis was just written as if he was writing a creative writing piece. Absolutely nothing in terms of, there's nothing academic in it. There's no academic style. It's not the Harvard style. It's not APA referencing, nothing. It's not an academic document. And furthermore, these PhDs don't appear anywhere else. So nobody's discovering them, which ultimately means they're not being fed into a legitimate portal where all academics interface and interact. So in summary, that is the case, with Aldersgate. I know there's some confusion sometimes because there's Aldersgate University, there's Aldersgate College, and people don't understand when you say Aldersgate University College doesn't exist. It's pretty much the case of saying the University of Zimbabwe exists, right? But the Zimbabwe University, the ZU, doesn't exist, right? And when you have an instance where somebody says, I graduated with a degree from quantum nuclear physics, and we go on the UZ's website and their prospectus, and the UZ doesn't offer that degree, then we understand that you just did make a mistake to say I went to the ZU and not the UZ. You're also claiming to have graduated from the ZU with a degree that even the UZ, which is a similar name to where you went, doesn't offer. So in summary, those are the issues with Aldersgate. There are also little things that Prof. Changamire discovered, for instance, that Aldersgate says it hosts all of its graduations within the Philippines at their school. These Zimbabwean guys are graduating from Aldersgate in Zambia and in South Africa and sometimes in Kenya. They're not having these graduations in the Philippines. And the graduations are happening outside of the academic calendar. Aldersgate hosts its graduations in June, but these guys are graduating in December. And after we released the Walter Mzembe story, and we think it's in response to us, Aldersgate, when you go to their website, have now put up a disclaimer, a warning when you first go to the website that there are people that misrepresent to be from Aldersgate. I cancelled it here, but I'm just going to try and see if I can pull it out and see if it will come again if I go straight. All right. Right, so they've put up a disclaimer now. Aldersgate College Inc. values transparency and integrity in all our official communication channels. Our communication adheres to the highest standards and guidelines and reflect the values of our beloved institution. Announcements and updates will be made exclusively through our verified social media account and our official website. Users are advised to exercise caution in their transactions with entities claiming affiliation with Aldersgate College Inc. To ensure authenticity of information, always verify the legitimacy of any communication by cross-referencing with the school's official communication channels. Aldersgate College Inc. bears no responsibility for transactions conducted through unverified means. Now, this is important because there is, when you Google Aldersgate College doctorate PhD degrees, you actually find something called Hali Management Consultancy. And Hali Management Consultancy is offering PhD degrees in Ireland and in the Philippines, and the full award will happen when you've passed components and so forth. And Aldersgate is saying, go by what you find on our official website and do not go by anything that you find on any other channel. And this is important, and why I say this is because there's a school called the London Graduate School and something called the London Graduate School of Economics and another one called the Commonwealth Universities. They are subject of further investigations. There are people in the private sector that got supposed degrees from these guys. And these guys are registered as companies in the UK. And they're owned by a Nigerian individual who has actually faced legal trouble and been arrested and spent time in jail in Nigeria for pretty much selling fake degrees. And there's an Aldersgate College linked to these guys. There is a story, an article by just give me a sec, I'm just going to put it out, by the International Center for Investigative Reporting, which looked at the London Graduate School, and they were able to pull up responses from the London Graduate School itself. They got in touch with authorities here in England. They were able to pull up company records, and they were able to create that link between that Nigerian owner of that particular school and degrees supposedly coming from Aldersgate College. And when you go to the Facebook page of that Aldersgate College in the Philippines, it actually takes you, when you click on the number, that number takes you to the WhatsApp of a Nigerian woman. And when you try to speak to her naturally, like, hey, what's up, long time no see, she'll speak to you normally. But when you speak with a different number saying you're looking for information about Aldersgate, she starts talking about the degree and she pretends to be from the real Aldersgate. So there's definitely an issue and a problem there, which, it will be expanded in the full Aldersgate episode when hopefully their final response comes out. But Aldersgate College, the registered one in the Philippines, has distanced itself from all of these communications, from all of these different submissions and these different things where people graduate from other places and not the Philippines, or where people graduate with degrees that they don't have. So the most straightforward and straight up answer and straight up method of understanding Aldersgate is go on their website. On their website, if there is a course that they do not offer there, that course does not exist. If somebody has graduated from something else that looks like Aldersgate College but bears no similarity to them, then it's not from Aldersgate College. And the best way to check is look at the Philippines government, look at the accreditation body, and look at what Aldersgate themselves say. And if all of those things tie up, then you understand why this whole thing is a problem. And there is a long list. Panashe is doing another story about a former ZANU-PF deputy minister who also has the same degree. And funny enough, with him, when he was approached for comment, he told young Panashe too that you're a young boy, go and find money and so forth. But again, a story for the next episode. But in summary, this is everything about Aldersgate College. It can get very confusing, and we understand it, but make no mistake about it, none of this is real. It's all bogus, and there is a real possibility that the Nigerian syndicate that was behind the UNISA graduations could similarly be behind this, because it seems to be the same individual with different universities, some of them registered as companies in the UK, but not registered with the Department of Education, some of them registered in Panama. So it takes quite a lot of investigation to get to the bottom of it, but that is your Aldersgate summary. Anything to do with Aldersgate and PhDs is bogus.
Thank you. You can conclude.
Yep. So once again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode about the National University of Science and Technology and Dumisani Madzivanyati. You will read about him in some sectors as a thug. You read about him in some sectors as a ZANU-PF sympathizer. He has quite notorious coverage when you look up his name, quite famous for invading the farm of a human rights lawyer, Sipho Malunga, and the child of Sidney Malunga, a celebrated liberation war hero. Obviously the colleagues for Dumisani Madzivanyati were quite convinced that things did not add up with his degree. We now know, according to NUST's own prospectus, published prospectus, that this guy does not have a valid PhD. He has rose almost the level of being, actually to the level, he has been a head of department in one shape, form, way or another. He's interacted with students. For the purposes of making this reach, we reached out to lawyers to get you what is pretty much a rounded response. What are the potential ramifications for this? What does this mean for students? And what does this mean for people that graduated? We understand that after all, university papers are graded across multiple panels, so people from NUST shouldn't catch a beating, on their degree because they went to NUST. But the perception of NUST being a school where integrity is high on the menu, integrity is the main dish on the menu, that's going to take a hit, because quite plain and simple, in this case, that there's been no integrity. They hired and employ someone whose PhD is bogus, and that's unfortunate. Look, when we started this the fake doctorate files at Dug Up, we wanted to find out the truth, right? That's why we investigated Walter Magaya to begin with. We wanted to find out the truth. Does he or does he not have the qualifications that he says he does? The story grew and blew up on us and became about something else, and we are now looking for understanding. It's become widespread. We are in a situation now where every single day we are finding out that there are people in government, cabinet ministers, people who are directors at ministries, permanent secretaries, different secretaries in government, senior civil servants, and it stretches to the private sector as well. You've got people that are receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars from NGOs, from companies, from organizations in the US, organizations affiliated with the European Union to fight things like TB, HIV, AIDS, and so forth. And the people leading these institutions are people who are, by all accounts, academic frauds. But we're going to take a break for a little bit on academic fraud. Our next episode will be the inside story, like we promised, and that is a deep dive into everything that's been happening with 2030. We promised this on Twitter some 3 weeks ago. We've conducted some interviews, we've done some digging, and we have some mind-blowing and mind-blowing and mind-boggling stuff coming out of that. That's our next inside story. And then next week we have incredible revelations. We are launching a third series, which is called the Red Cross Files. Don't hold me to it. We might change the name of that, but we uncovered unbelievable corruption, bickering, fighting, and frankly surprising things happening with the Red Cross Society in Zimbabwe, that even roping in the ministry that deals with the Zimbabwean war, liberation fighters, and so forth. That will be the series we'll concentrate on for the next couple of weeks while we just tie some ends with the fake doctorate files. So, keep following us. We do have a lot of different productions that are coming up. So we've had the inside story that gives you stories that you wouldn't, versions of stories that you wouldn't otherwise get from the street. This comes from people who are informed, who are involved, looking at intelligence briefings, classified documents, leaks, if you can call them that, Zim WikiLeaks, like somebody said. Then we have the fake doctorate files that Petina Gapa said, Maynard nditsikamtanda wema doctorate. So we have the fake doctorate files, wema doctorate, and then we have the Red Cross files coming through. There are other productions that are going to come up. Some of them that are not, investigations. We're looking at talk shows and we're looking at community stories as well. So we appreciate your support. We appreciate your viewership. And I'm Maynard Monyo. I'm the lead producer at We Dug Up. So on behalf of me and everybody else, Panashe, Prof Changamire, Hubert Stolle, Tendai Shama, everybody who's part of this production, Michael Mpotaringa, on behalf of me and all of them, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you not next week, in the next couple of days for the inside story. Could be tomorrow, could be the day after tomorrow, but it is coming, and it is about 2030, and your mind's gonna be blown. So that's it, guys. Cheers and enjoy your day.